Historians compare him to Montgomery. His soldiers call him Sam Bahadur. He's the victor of the Bangladesh War. He's also India's first and only surviving field marshal. But what sort of man lies behind this formidable reputation, and how does he look back on a life that's taken him right to the top? Judge for yourself as you meet Field Marshal Sam Hormurji Farmji Jamshedji Manekshaw in the first ever television interview he's given about himself. That's a mouthful of names, Field Marshal. How did you end up with so many?
Oh, very simple. My real name is Sam Manekshaw. When I was a gentleman cadet at Dehradun, we had an adjutant from the Black Watch called Captain J.F.S. McLaren. So when I was commissioned, I said I must also have initials. So I took my name S, my father's name H, his father's name F, his father's name J. So I became S.H.F.J. Manekshaw.
Wonderful. You made it all up to suit yourself.
That's right.
Okay, they compare you to Montgomery. Is that a double-edged compliment?
Utter nonsense. Montgomery was a great soldier. What have I done?
You were the victor of the Bangladesh War?
Yes, what's that?
Montgomery had another quality, which was that he may have been great, but he wasn't modest. Are you a modest man?
I think I am.
Okay, you've been quoted as having said that if you were Pakistani, Pakistan would have won the Bangladesh War. Was that a joke, or were you being partly serious?
It isn't correct. I don't know who has made the story up. It was after the 1971 conflict. I was in my room. There was a little girl from some magazine. She came and talked to me about all sorts of things. She ate my chocolates and she did all sorts of things. And then she asked me that, Field Marshal, you belong to the Frontier Force Regiment, which is in Pakistan. Why didn't you go to Pakistan? And I said, Mr. Jinnah did ask me, but I said I've finished commanding. I'm now an Indian. I've married an Indian girl, and I'm here. And then she asked me, and what would have happened if you had gone to Pakistan? So I bent her over and slapped her bottom. I said, I should have won the war and I would have thrashed you.
But the interesting part of that story is that Mr. Jinnah did actually ask you to consider going to Pakistan.
Oh, yes, that's quite true. That is quite true.
And you said no?
I merely said that, what will I do? He said, your regiment is in Pakistan. I said, I've finished commanding now. It's no use my going there.
Okay, let's go back to the very beginning. You were born in April 1914 in Amritsar. What was a Parsi family doing in the Punjab?
My father was a doctor. He qualified as a doctor in Bombay many, many years ago, and he was very young. And he got married to my young mother, who was 18. And he couldn't earn a living in Bombay. So they said, Dr. Manekshaw, go to the Punjab. Now, this is 1900. And he said, where is the Punjab? So they got into a train to go to Lahore. Those days, there used to be a first class, a second class, an intermediate class for Anglo-Indians and Parsis. So my father and mother got into the intermediate class to go to Lahore. At Amritsar station, at 6 o'clock in the morning, my father opened the shutter, and my poor mother, who was 18 or 17 and a half, she saw a Sikh for the first time in her life with his hair down, his beard down, and she howled and kicked up a row. She thought she was in a zoo.
But despite her initial response, your family settled down and lived their lives there.
Then my father got down from the train, said, we'll get down here, we'll get the next train back. And he started his practice in Amritsar, and he made a fortune there. He was the only doctor there. He did extremely well.
Was it a rich family? Was it a luxurious childhood?
No, there were 6 of us, all born and bred in Amritsar.
But you went to public school in Nainital?
We were sent off all of us were sent off to boarding schools. I went to Nainital, to Sherwood, Nainital.
Tell me, with that sort of background, a doctor, public school, how did you end up in the army?
Oh, my father had sent 2 of my elder brothers to England, and they became engineers. My father was a doctor. I used to go with him everywhere, read his Materia Medica, go with him everywhere. I wanted to be a doctor myself. I was going to become a gynecologist.
You wanted to give birth to other people's babies?
No, I wanted to become a guy. And my father had promised to send me to England. He said, if you do well, my son, in your senior Cambridge, I'll send you. And I stopped playing games, I stopped everything, and I worked and worked and worked, and I did extremely well. But I was 15 years old, and I told my father I couldn't do any better. And he said, my son, you're only 15, join college here. When you're 18, I'll send you, as I promised. I didn't speak, I was a damn fool. I didn't speak to my father for 18 months. Then I read there was an army examination. I asked my mother for 500 rupees. I went to Delhi. I appeared for the examination and I got in, and that's why I'm in the army.
So you joined the army on the rebound. You could have easily ended up a gynecologist.
And I would have been first-class gynecologist.
Okay, you went to the Indian Military Academy, and you have the distinction of being the first cadet from that academy to have gone on to become Indian Army Chief. But you didn't actually graduate from the academy with much distinction, did you?
No, I passed out as Gentleman Cadet Manekshaw.
And you should have passed out as a proper second lieutenant.
No, we all passed out, but when others became under officers, they became havaldars or sergeants, etc. But I was a terrible chap.
What happened? Did you get into trouble with one of the sergeants?
Of course I got into trouble. All the time I was in trouble.
Well,
but I passed out as Gentleman Cadet Manekshaw and became Second Lieutenant Manekshaw.
And in fact, trouble dogged you through your army life. I mean, in the 30s, you were in Burma during World War II, and you were very badly injured. Virtually half your stomach was taken out.
The Japanese put 9 bullets into my stomach. My lungs, liver, kidneys, intestines, everything was perforated. Nobody thought I'd ever live. My father, who was a doctor, wrote to me when I was in hospital, my son, you've been shot through the lungs. If you smoke a cigarette, you'll be a dead man. You'll be shot through the kidneys and your liver. If you drink, you'll be a dead man. I listened to him and I nearly died.
In fact, you're saying the opposite too, that you survived because you didn't listen to him. Huh? People have this impression, Field Marshal Manekshaw, that yours has been a steady climb upwards, that from the day you joined the army, you were destined to get to the top. But in fact, in the 60s, it almost went terribly wrong. You got into terrible trouble with the then defense minister, and a court of inquiry was held against you. What happened?
Mr. Krishna Menon didn't like me. He and I met for the first time. At that time, he'd had a row with General Timaya. You know, General Timaya threatened. And he asked me, he got on extremely well with me. He asked me, what do you think of General Timaya? I was a Major General. And I said, I'm not allowed to think about him. He's my Commander-in-Chief. He said, oh, I can get rid of him tomorrow. And I, in my usual breezy way, said, good, I'll go up one place. And then I read him a lesson. That today you are asking me as a Major General what I think of my chief. Tomorrow you will be asking my brigadiers and colonels what you think of me. It's the surest way of winning discipline. Don't do it, Mr. Minister.
And he took that badly?
He took it dislike to me. Did everything possible to get me out of the army.
So he was being vengeful and nasty?
Yeah.
And did you come close to being dismissed? Were you actually saved by the court of inquiry?
They had an inquiry against me. There were 3 generals sitting up me. I was exonerated on every charge. But nothing, my promotion was held up for 18 months. Then the Chinese came to my help. Krishna Menon was sacked, Kaul was sacked, and Nehru sent for me, and he said, I've got a vigorous enemy, I have a vigorous general, will you take over?
Have you always been a lucky man? Has luck always favored you?
I suppose luck.
Timmy, you did go on to become Army Chief. You became Army Chief, in fact, in '69. At what point did you realize that you were going to get the top job that everyone covets?
I was senior. I'd done extremely well as an army commander. I thought I'd become.
And when the phone rang, the soldiers, the Gurkha soldiers, celebrated in a unique way, didn't they?
They did, yes. They were all delighted.
They dressed up as women and they serenaded you.
They all do. The Gurkhas always, they dress up as women, etc. They laugh and they joke and we all dance together, etc. It's quite true.
But I gather your wife was one of the few people who said to you, Sam, there's nothing to celebrate. I always knew you were going to be chief.
I remember we were in Calcutta. I was an army commander. When the telephone rang and Kumaramangalam, who was the chief, said, Sam, it's just been announced that you are going to be the next chief. So I walked across from my bedroom to her bedroom, and I said, darling, get up. I've just been told that I'm going to be the chief. Aren't you happy? I always knew you were going to be the chief. There's more than I knew. Anyway.
When you took up that job, Chief of Army Staff, did you anticipate that you were going to be leading India into perhaps the most decisive battle of the 50 years of its existence?
No, at that time we didn't. You remember, I took over in 1969. At that time there was no problem. East Pakistan was there was no trouble anywhere.
So you expected a sort of routine job, smooth sailing?
I thought I'd just command my army, that's all.
Events turned out very differently, didn't they?
Yeah, it turned out differently.
I want to take a quick commercial. The break there, Field Marshal. In part 2, I want to come back and talk about that decisive moment that catapulted you into becoming one of the icons of modern India, the Bangladesh War. But first, a little commercial break. See you in a moment. Welcome back. Field Marshal, let's talk about the Bangladesh War. It's what you're really remembered for by practically every Indian. It was an amazing campaign. In 13 days, you brought the Pakistan army to its knees. What was the most frightening moment for you?
You know, I had no secrets from Mrs. Gandhi, the Prime Minister. I used to see her every morning at her house. At 8:30, I'd have coffee with her. There'd be all the crowd outside, and we'd walk outside. I'd tell her everything that had happened in the last 24 hours and what I intended doing in the next 24 hours. About the 5th day of the conflict, I'd gone there. Everything had gone wrong. The Navy had lost the kukri. The Air Force had lost a lot of aircraft on the ground. My advances in Bangladesh were halted. And as usual, I'd gone there, had coffee. And I said, Prime Minister, I've got bad news for you. I told her what had happened. And she looked at me and smiled. You can't win every day, Sam. And then she turned around and said, anyway, Sam, we won't tell anybody. We'll still go outside, let everybody know as if nothing has happened. About 10 o'clock in the morning, I was in my office, in my operations room. Everything was going according to plan. I rang up. She was in a cabinet meeting. And I told her, Sam, she said, yes. I said, everything's going beautifully. She put the phone down, thank you. She dismissed the cabinet. And then she rang up, please, Sam, come over, quickly, come over. I said, everything's going all right there. I said, please come over. I went and saw her, and I told her what. She said, I was so worried. Were you worried? I said, of course I was worried.
You got on very well with her.
I got on well with her.
Would you say that one of your strengths was your ability to get on with Mrs. Gandhi, to win her confidence, but also to get her to accept your judgment?
Well, she and I got on well. She trusted me. I trusted her. I never kept anything back from her, and she never kept anything back from me.
Is it true that she allowed you to choose the date on which India was prepared to actually take up arms and go to war?
Yes, she asked me, and I wouldn't tell her. I wouldn't tell her. And she said, please tell me, sir. I said, then everybody will know. She said, I won't tell anybody. So I said, it'll be on the 4th of January. She said, why the 4th? I said, 4 is my lucky number. I was born on number 4. My wife's birthday is number 4.
But you chose 4th of January, not 4th of December.
4th of December.
4th of December.
I commanded 4 Corps. Mr. Krishna Menon had an inquiry on me on the 4th. I was exonerated on the 13th. I'm living in 4 King George's Avenue. So it's going to be 4th at 4 o'clock in the morning.
And she accepted?
And she said, don't change your mind, Sam.
But you also revealed something else. The letter 4 and these sort of coincidences mean a lot to you. Are you superstitious?
I'm not superstitious. When I was the commandant of the infantry school in Mao, there was a palmist chap or somebody who'd come to see me, and I don't like to meet all these people. And he turned around and said, you know, you should have been killed on the 22nd of February. And I said, I think you got it wrong. I was wounded, very badly wounded on the 21st. He said, sir, you can cut my throat. It must be the 22nd. So I said, I will too. As I was walking across, my wife was coming down. I said, "Can you remember, darling, when I was wounded?" And she said, "Yes, on the 22nd.
But it adds up to 4. That's probably why you survived.
That's 4.
An amazing coincidence. Field Marshal, let me take you back to the Bangladesh War. To what extent did you win because the Pakistan military leadership proved to be incompetent? For instance, I gather they had no fallback strategy to defend Dhaka.
No, it's not true. The Pakistan army in East Pakistan fought very gallantly, but they had no chance. They were 1,000 miles away from their base. I'd had 8 or 9 months to make my preparations. I'd got a superiority of almost 15 to 1. They just had no chance, but they fought very gallantly.
Is it in fact true that there was a young Pakistani captain, Ehsan Malik, who defended his garrison so stoutly at Kamalpur that in fact you sent him a personal letter?
That's quite true. And we tried to capture a place called Hilly, which he was defending, and we tried very hard, and we didn't succeed until about the 3rd attempt. And he fought gallantly, and I did send him a personal letter. And when I went to Pakistan after the conflict, I went twice. I mentioned it there to their chief that I think that boy should be given a gallantry award. He fought magnificently.
And did they, or did they hold your recommendation against him?
I don't know. I said he fought gallantly.
At the time, there were many stories that you were going to take over the country. Were they true?
No, it isn't. In 1970, Mrs. Gandhi's stock politically was very low. And I couldn't go to a cocktail party. I couldn't go when everybody's asking, "General, when are you taking over?" And I remember I was with the American ambassador, Kenneth Keating, who was a great friend of mine, at a cocktail party, talking to him, when his number 2, who was a CIA man, came along and said, "General, when are you taking over?" And I turned around to Kenneth, and I said, "Kenneth, when is Westmoreland taking over?" And he laughed. He said, "Well done, Sam." But one day, I was in my office at 4 o'clock, when I had a direct telephone line with Mrs. Gandhi. She was in Parliament House. She rang up and said, "Sam, are you very busy?" And I said, "Prime Minister, the army chief's always busy, but never too busy to see his Prime Minister." And she said, "Can you come over?" And I said, "I'm having my tea, Prime Minister." She said, "Oh, I'll give you tea." And I said, "I get good tea here, you give muck." She said, "I'll give you good tea, you greedy chap." So I got her in a car, and I went there, and she was there, kidney-shaped table. She was sitting down there. And I, in my breezy way, walked up, and she was an actress. She was sitting down like this. And I said, "Hello, Prime Minister. You seem worried." And she looked at me and said, "I have problems." So I said, "Oh, cry on my shoulder. What are your problems?" And she looked me straight in the eye and said, "You are my problem." And I said, "Now, what have I done? Have I made a speech or done something stupid?" I said, "Now what have I done?" She said, "Everybody says you're going to take over from me." Now that shook me for about 3 seconds. I walked across. She has a long nose. I have a much longer one. I put my nose next to her. I said, "What do you think?" And she said, "You can't." And I said, "Oh, you think I'm so incompetent?" "I didn't mean that, Sam. You wouldn't." And I said, "Much better, Prime Minister, much better. I'm going to tell you a little jingle, which my daughter, when she comes back from the convent, recites to me. You mind your own business, I'll mind mine. You kiss your own sweetheart, I'll kiss mine. I don't interfere politically as long as nobody interferes with me in the army."
And that set her fears at rest.
That's right.
After the war, Mrs. Gandhi went on in 1973 to elevate you to Field Marshal. But did she also offer you the job of Chief of Defense Staff to go with it?
No. No, she didn't. She made me a Field Marshal. She said, "Sam, you like the British. Will you go as High Commissioner?" And I said, "No, Prime Minister, you've forgotten my oath. When I took over as Army Chief, I'd taken an oath and I told you I will accept nothing from the government, but I will command my army without any interference." She said, "But you accepted the rank of Field Marshal." And I said, "That was my birthright." Then she said, "All right, if you don't want to go as High Commissioner, will you become a governor? Go to Bombay, the Parsis will love it." And I said, "Thank you very much." I don't want to become Lord Saab, and my wife will never become a lady. She'll remain a woman.
But in fact, what you did do was not to hang up your boots. When you stopped being army chief, you took up almost a second career. You became a chairman and you went on to the board of several companies. Was that fun?
Yes, well, people asked me to join companies, and I joined companies, and I've taken on much too much. I'm the chairman, I think, of 9 companies, and I'm on the boards of 11.
Do you enjoy being a businessman as much as you enjoyed being a soldier?
I enjoy every moment of it.
You're 86.
I'm 85.
You're 85, forgive me, but you look 60 and you have the energy of a 40-year-old. Field Marshal, how do you keep yourself going when others of your age have slowed down and given up?
I've sold myself to the devil. Anyway, I don't know. I'll just keep going.
But is it discipline, good living, or good luck?
Everything together. I lead a normal life. I take my exercise in the morning with my bull worker. I look after my garden. I work hard.
How many minutes a day do you do on your bull worker at this age?
10 minutes.
Every single day?
When I'm at home.
And is it a strict routine you follow? Up at a particular hour, breakfast at a particular time?
No, I get up in the morning, early morning at 5:30. My Gurkha brings me my chota hasdi, my morning cup of tea. I get up, I use my bull worker, I work in the garden. Then I wait for my wife to come out of her room so that we can have breakfast.
It's been a full life. And clearly it's been a good life. Are there still any ambitions that you have that you want to fulfill?
No missions left.
Are you a satisfied person as well as a happy person?
Very satisfied, very happy. I've got one wife who looks after me, or at least pretends to. And I have 2 daughters, I have grandchildren. We are all a very happy family.
And in fact, you celebrated earlier this year your 60th wedding anniversary, I believe.
We did, and my daughters insisted it was Diamond Jubilee, and Father, you've got to give Mama a diamond. And I said, damn it, why? It costs a lot of money. But I had to do it.
And you gave her one?
I gave her one.
And what did she say?
She thanked me. And I said, I've got nothing out of the damn thing.
Field Marshal, when as we all one day have to meet our makers, and you meet yours, and he asks you to account for the time you spent on this earth, what are you going to say to him?
What am I going to say? I've had a very, very pleasant time. I've worked very hard. I've played very hard. I've enjoyed every moment of my stay here.
You've lived your life to the full. Is that your verdict on yourself?
Yes, I have.
Field Marshal Manekshaw, thank you very much for the pleasure of this interview.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, well.